I watched a stranger step forward to stop what I thought was a threat at airport security. And in that moment, I realized I'd already decided he was the villain before he'd even said a word. The way he looked, the way he dressed, the way he seemed too interested when chaos broke out. And I was so certain of that judgment that I almost missed something crucial. I almost missed the real story entirely. Welcome to Plot Twist Revelations, where the person you're most suspicious of might be the one trying to help you, and sometimes the biggest danger isn't what's in front of you. It's what's inside your own mind. There's a specific moment I can point to. It was at airport security. That place where time feels different, where the world narrows down to a conveyor belt and suspicious glances, and the constant low hum of announcement. I was standing in line with two guys I just met, Ryan Johnson and Robert Hernandez. We were all heading to a tech conference in San Francisco, and in that cramped corridor with its harsh fluorescent lights and the smell of metal detectors and nervous sweat, we felt like we'd been thrown together by circumstance into something that wasn't quite friendship yet, but wasn't quite strangers anymore. Ryan was fidgeting with his phone, checking emails like the world depended on it. He was dressed sharp, tailored blazer, crisp button-up, the kind of clothes that announce you belong somewhere important. Robert had the opposite energy. Beanie pulled low. Vintage band t-shirt. The kind of look that says, I'm not here to impress anyone. But as different as they were, they had the same nervous energy I felt. The specific anxiety of being trapped in a security line with hundreds of other people, all of us trying to exist in the same small space without losing our minds. Then it happened. Ahead of us, an older man started arguing with a TSA agent. His face was getting red, his voice was getting louder, and he was refusing to take his belt off, like this one piece of clothing represented some kind of principle he wasn't willing to compromise on. Not gonna take my belt off, this is ridiculous. His voice cut through the ambient noise like a knife. People looked up. The line shifted. You could feel the collective anxiety spike. The agent was calm, professional. Sir, it's standard procedure. But the man wasn't hearing it. He was angry. The kind of angry where you can see it's about more than a belt. It's about control, about being told what to do, about being treated like a suspect in his own life. I exchanged a look with Ryan. His eyebrow went up like he was mentally solving an equation. Robert rolled his eyes, annoyed at the delay, tapping his foot against the floor with the impatience of someone who had places to be. Bet that guy's a real piece of work, Ryan muttered, a smirk playing at the corner of his mouth. I wanted to be different. I wanted to be better. Or he's just having a bad day, I said, trying to sound like the kind of person who sees the humanity in situations like this. Ryan just shrugged, but I could see the discomfort on his face. We were all in a hurry after all. All of us were sacrificing something to be here. Time, money, ease. All of us wanted to get through this without drama. But then the old man did something that changed everything. He walked away. Just abandoned his position. Stormed off like the system had defeated him, like there was no point in fighting anymore. And as he left, something fell. His duffel bag. It hit the ground with a dull thud, and it sat there. A piece of luggage from a stranger, unattended, abandoned. That's when fear moved through the security line like electricity. The TSA agents moved in, treating it like it might detonate at any moment. They cordoned off the area with those plastic tape barriers. They called for backup. There was an announcement over the PAW system, a woman's voice trying to sound calm but failing. Please remain calm. We're investigating a potential security risk. My heart was in my throat. I looked at Robert, who was scanning the crowd like he was trying to find an exit, like he was already calculating where to run if this went bad. And I looked at Ryan, expecting to see the same fear reflected back at me. But that's not what I saw. I saw interest. His eyes were fixed on that duffel bag, and there was something in his expression that I couldn't quite read. It wasn't fear. It was something closer to recognition. Like he'd seen that bag before. Like he knew something about it that the rest of us didn't. "What's the deal, man? You know him?" I asked, half joking, half serious, trying to lighten the mood because the tension was becoming unbearable. Ryan dropped his voice, like he was worried someone would overhear. "No, just it's suspicious." And there it was. My first real judgment of Ryan. He seemed too interested. Too knowing. Too involved. My phone buzzed. News alert. Airport security threat. The words on my screen felt like confirmation of something I'd already decided. That danger was here. That something was wrong. That Ryan's interest in that bag meant he knew more than he was saying. I was building a story. And once you start building a story, it's hard to stop. Every detail becomes evidence. Every gesture becomes proof. "All right, we gotta get out of here," Robert said suddenly, his laid-back tone gone, replaced by something urgent and real. "We gotta get out of here right now." "What do you mean?" I stammered. "We can't just—" "Look, I'm serious. That guy wasn't just an angry traveler," Robert insisted, his eyes narrowing. "Something's off, I know it." I wanted to disagree. I wanted to be the voice of reason. But the doubt was already there, burrowed into my brain, making itself comfortable. "No way, he's just a guy having a meltdown." But the words felt hollow even as I said them. The tension was building like a physical thing. I could feel it in my chest, in my throat, in the way my hands had gone cold. The TSA agents were moving around the bag like it was a live bomb. Other travelers were whispering, filming on their phones. The man's anger had become a shared anxiety, and now his abandoned luggage was proof that something was fundamentally wrong with the world. Then Ryan moved. He stepped forward, and something about the way he did it made everyone look at him. He raised his hand like he was about to speak, and I felt a flash of panic. Was he about to confess something? Was he about to make this worse? "Wait," he shouted, making the whole line tense up again. "Look." He was pointing at something on the duffel bag. The agents turned, and even through my fear, I could see they were curious about what he'd seen. They approached cautiously, and Robert shook his head beside me, his voice low. "Man, you're playing with fire here." But Ryan wasn't backing down. He stood there unwavering, and as the agents examined the bag, I could see his face shifting. There was a battle happening inside him, fear and determination and something else I couldn't quite name. "What the hell, Ryan?" I whispered, feeling both admiration and dread in equal measure. One of the agents unzipped the bag. What came out wasn't a weapon. It wasn't explosives or poison, or any of the 1,000 things my mind had been preparing for. It was documents, equipment, the mundane contents of a traveler's life. Ryan's posture changed immediately. The tension drained out of him, but only for a moment. Then he spoke, and I could hear the fear in his voice, the edge of something he'd been carrying. "Those belong to me," he said quietly. "I left it at my girlfriend's place, and I was supposed to pick it up before the flight. She was traveling with a friend. She was just supposed to drop it off." Robert was confused, his earlier theories crumbling. "But what about the anger? We were all judging him." I wasn't judging. Ryan shot back, his frustration bubbling over. I was worried about the bag, about what people would think, about what would happen if I couldn't explain it. It's not what it seems. The agents turned to look at him more closely, and I could see their expressions softening just a fraction. The microscopic shift that happens when a story suddenly makes sense, when a narrative resolves. "You say this belongs to you?" one of them asked. "You can't identify it." Ryan nodded and pulled out his phone. He flipped to a photo of himself, standing with his girlfriend and the exact bag. The same duffel bag now lying open on the conveyor belt, its contents exposed, its mystery solved. I watched the realization wash over the agents. The older man hadn't been a threat. Ryan hadn't been suspicious. He'd been caught in the same trap we all had, caught between fear and circumstance, between what things looked like and what they actually were. The agents did their verification. Eventually, after what felt like an eternity, the all-clear was given. The barrier came down. The announcement was made. The crisis, such as it was over. But for me, something had shifted. I felt a wave of shame wash over me. Not the small, manageable kind of shame that fades quickly. The deep kind. The kind that makes you look at yourself and wonder who you've become. How easily you'd judged someone based on nothing. How quickly you'd written a story where he was the villain without knowing anything about him at all. "Man," I sighed, meeting Ryan's eyes. I was ready to assume the worst. Robert nodded, looking just as ashamed as I felt. "Yeah, same here. I don't know why we jumped to conclusions." Ryan was calm now, speaking to the agents with a confidence I hadn't heard from him before. "Look, I understand why you're on high alert. I get it. But I promise you there's nothing dangerous here. It's just documents, just some work equipment, just me trying to get to a conference." The agents relaxed visibly. The danger had been imaginary all along. As we finally made it past security and the line moved forward, I felt the weight lifting, not completely, but enough to breathe. Ryan had transformed from someone I'd been suspicious of into someone I felt I'd wronged. Not because he'd done anything. Not because there was ever any real evidence. Just because he'd had the courage to speak up, to question the narrative, to risk looking involved to help clarify a situation that had spiraled out of control. "I'm really sorry, man," I said finally, rubbing the back of my neck awkwardly. "I misjudged you, we all did." Ryan gave a half smile, and there was something in it. Not forgiveness exactly, but acceptance. "It's cool, not the first time someone's thought I looked suspicious." And that one line told me everything. It told me this wasn't his first experience being judged. That there was a story there. A lifetime of small moments where people had looked at him and made assumptions based on nothing but instinct and fear, and the stories they were already telling themselves. Robert laughed, shaking his head in a way that was both amused and ashamed. "You should have seen my face. I was ready to run when you just stood there with that intensity." Ryan shrugged, looking a little proud of himself. "Guess I'm used to taking risks, but this wasn't what I had in mind." Later, as we finally boarded the plane, standing together at the gate, something had shifted between us. The three of us had been strangers trapped in a moment of collective panic, and now we were something else. Not quite friends, not yet. But bound by this weird experience, this moment where everything could have gone differently if any of us had acted on our first instinct. I looked at Ryan and Robert, and I realized something that probably should have been obvious all along. Judgment was easy. It's lazy. It's the default setting of a mind that's tired and scared and looking for shortcuts. But understanding required effort. It required curiosity. It required the willingness to sit with discomfort long enough to see past your own fear. I'd almost missed Ryan's actual story because I was too busy telling myself a different one. "Next time I'll pick out my villains better," I joked, nudging Ryan as we waited to board. He smiled and Robert burst into laughter. "Or maybe just trust your gut more." Yeah, maybe that was it. But as I thought about it, sitting in that departure lounge, I realized something else. Trusting your gut wasn't the same as trusting your fear. My gut had told me Ryan was dangerous. My fear had confirmed it. But my gut had also, in that same moment, told me to look closer, to pay attention, to notice something I couldn't quite explain. The trick, I think, wasn't choosing between judgment and understanding. It was learning to hold both at the same time, to be cautious without being cruel, suspicious without being unfair, protective without being paranoid. Because the world is full of people like Ryan. People who look different, who act different, who seem slightly off in ways we can't quite articulate. And our instinct is to protect ourselves by assuming the worst. But what if we could protect ourselves while still staying open? What if we could be careful without being cruel? That's the real plot twist, isn't it? Not that Ryan turned out to be innocent, but that I learned something about myself in the moment when I thought he wasn't. Standing at that gate, waiting to board a plane to San Francisco with two guys I just met, I made a silent promise to myself. Next time I felt that rush of judgment, that certainty that someone was wrong or dangerous or suspicious, I'd pause. I'd look for the thing that didn't quite fit. I'd ask the question instead of deciding the answer. Because the person you judge most harshly might be the one trying to help you. And the real villain might just be the fear inside your own mind, telling you stories that keep you small and safe and alone. This has been Plot Twist Revelations. If this story hit something in you, if you've ever misjudged someone based on nothing but instinct, leave a comment about a time you got someone wrong. Like this video if it made you think twice about your first impression. Subscribe if you want more stories about the moments that change how we see the world. And remember, sometimes the biggest twist isn't what's on the surface. It's what we discover about ourselves when we finally look deeper.